Check your project directory, make sure it's set to a folder called SetDrivenKey, and click OK. Go to File. We're going to load a scene from the Scenes folder called wingsetup.fxs. The most basic explanation of SetDrivenKey is to use the motion from one object to drive an animation on another object. Now we've done that several times in the Command tab just by feeding rotation values into channels on the other objects through the Channels block. In this particular tutorial we're going to use the Compose tab to control an animation based on our rotation. So we'll start by prepping our scene. I'm going to do the animation in negative frames, so we can use all of our positive frames for real animation. It's generally a good idea to keep all of your reference poses in a negative frame. We'll start by defining a range. So on -10, if I have the wrist, check to make sure I'm on descendants and I'm set to motion. I'm going to create a dummy keyframe at frame -10. Let's go to frame -1 and create another dummy keyframe. So I have a blank animation that has keyframes set on my range here, -1 to -10. From -10, I'm just going to animate the position I want the wrist to be in when I fold the fingers. Then we're going to animate the fingers closing. When we go back to frame -1, I'm going to animate the position of the wrist to be wide open and arrange the fingers accordingly. So I've created a basic animation here. We can even go to frame -5. And lag all of the fingers on heading. So that when I play through this animation, the fingers uncurl to the top. Let's create an animation group for that. Highlight Bat Fingers L. It's just a null I've put in there to hold the hierarchy of all the finger bones. If I right click on that, I can group and create a new group, and I'm just going to do the branch on that, and we'll just call these fingers. OK. We'll change the color of them so we know they're added to a group. Let's head into Compose. And we'll set our in and out ranges to -1 to -10. We're going to use the current group, which is fingers. Make sure it's highlighted in this list. And we'll just cut that. It will cut all of our keyframes out, but it'll place them inside this track. And from here, we don't have to worry about in and out points. We can set this to whatever we want. So when we play the range, you can see our animation moving. And we'll start this at frame 0. So when we start, you can see what's going on. Now notice the wrist isn't in there. Well, it's not part of the group. But we do need to keep those keyframes in our negative frames because we're going to define a percentage range to blend this together. If you look at the clip instance, you'll see a time slider. This goes from 0 to 1. If you drag that up and down, it'll play the animation. So we now have a parametric value we can use to control this animation. Just leave that at 0. And we'll name this instance wing fold. So to continue setting up our character, let's head into Command, go to the Variables tab and create a new variable. Let's call this one wrist %. I have debug on. It tells me what the values are. Let's go to Expression And there's a way to turn this rotation value into a percentage value. The expression is called percentage range, or percent range. Just highlight percent range in the pull down. Let's delete these. And we're going to use our time modifier for our channel. So make sure heading is selected, and if you left click in the buffer, it will add this to this little field here. That's just so you can copy and paste. It doesn't do anything else. So we're going to copy that. We're going to paste it in all three fields here. The minimum and maximum values, in this case it's heading at -10, and the maximum value of this is heading at -1. So we right click on that. You'll see it turns purple, and it'll tell you what's going on. Operator minus missing operand. That's just fancy for saying it can't do the math on that. It doesn't know if that's a negative number or not. We can tell it that by making it subtract from 0. And select this whole expression, delete it, and then add the new one. You can see that it shows up. So as we rotate this now, we get a smooth percentage between 0 to 1 on our range that we defined, because it's checking frame -1 for the 100% and frame -10 for the 0%. Let's create a new variable. Let's go to expression, and we're going to tie this percentage to our motion clip time. Let's go back into command. There's a special command called clip_inst_time. It sounds very programmy, but what it does is it takes a clip name. In our case, it's wing fold. Watch your capitals. And the time is going to be wrist percent. Just right click and add that. You can see that it barks again. It's in red. Let's say it should be enclosed within quotes. It doesn't know what wing fold is, so we just put that in quotes, and now it knows to look for a name, wing fold, in the clips. Hit enter, and now it shows up. And you'll see that these values are exactly the same, because it's feeding that percentage into the time. Now we set the operator here to motion. It tells it to blend the motion clips value together. So now we've defined a range that plays an animation. So if we rotate this on heading, you see that it works. And if we get past, if you look at this, if we get past 1, it starts over again. Well, that's just the way the clip is set. The clip is set to repeat itself. We can set it to bounce back and forth, so it continues closing, or set it to accumulate, which would be what we'd expect if we overdrive these values. But now we've linked an animation to a rotation value. Let's go to File. We'll save this scene as SetDrivenKey clip.